It's all class policy and the laws in general. Karibu. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Timothy. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm called Pascal, and I'm from the KFCB. We work very closely with the KFC, especially in issues that revolve around policies in the film sector that we are going to have a discussion around today. Thank you very much.
Karibu. As I said earlier, this conversation will not be complete if we do not have a practitioner of the industry or in the industry as part of the panel. And for that matter, we have Mr. John Karanja, who will be discussing matters film policy. Karibu, John.
Good morning. My name is Karanja John, servant of the film industry for the last 24 years. And we'll be discussing more about the film industry and the challenges and the industry we want. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Last, we have a representative from the county government of Machakos, and that is Nick Njache. Karibu, Nick.
Good morning. My name, as you heard, is Nick Njache. I'm the Assistant Director, Film Production for Machakos County, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So to start us off, I'll just give an overview of where we are. The sole purpose of this market is for us to have a clear view of where we want to be. Karanja has said he's been in the industry for the past 24 years. He moved from being a practitioner to being a servant. He will tell us more what being a servant means. For us, from Kenya Film Commission, we just want to see a vibrant film industry. But the industry won't be vibrant if we don't do certain things. And one of those key deliverables is for the industry to have a policy that will be able to really give us some sort of sense of direction. And that's why my panel is composed of a practitioner or a servant of the industry. We have the county government, and we also have a representation from the national government. So before we actually kick off the actual discussion, I'll ask each member to just briefly give us their personal view on what national film policy that we are looking for is all about. Thank you. We'll start off with Nick. You have the mic.
My view on policy. I think having a policy sets the framework upon which an industry can work or thrive. And the fact that in this country we haven't had a film policy, a cultural policy, or any policy that actually tackles the issue of creativity, it's very sad after so many years of independence. And my wish and my hope is that this policy will finally find the light of day and will steer this industry from being a sector to being an industry. Speaking from the perspective of Machakos County, for ourselves, we wrote a bill years ago which presented to our MCAs, and we're still waiting for it to be ratified. And one of these fine days, I'm sure it will be ratified and will form the backbone for Machakos County to thrive as a filmmaking destination, and also for the youth of Machakos to be able, not only the youth, any practitioner of the art to be able to thrive. So I think that we do need a policy, and we don't need it like tomorrow, we need it today, we need it now. That's my view.
Fatma, Tume, sorry.
Thank you, Timothy. My view of having a policy would mean there will be deliberate funds allocated for film activities. As you are all aware, and I said yesterday, the most underfunded departments in the whole country is the Department of Gender, Culture, Sports, Youth. I think, like I said yesterday, Mombasa has the highest amount, and the highest amount is 600 million. So my wish is, if this policy was to be formulated, there would be deliberate funds, because we are like beggars. We go looking for money to partners. We always reach out to partners. Give us this, give us the other. But should there be a policy, we shall be confident to build our filmmakers. And like my colleague from Machako said, it's not about the age. We have a 60-year-old filmmaker called Babushe, very vibrant and very committed. So that would be my wish. And even for us in Nakuru County, we've presented a cultural and a heritage bill that was presented before the assembly during the last government. But just before it was approved, we got into elections. And you know, during electioneering year, nothing works. So we stopped at that. So that is my wish and my prayer, that we should have a policy to guide and help us in funding.
Pascal, Nakuru County is already working on a policy. Machakos have already presented their document to the assembly. You are seated in between the two counties. What's your view of counties having a policy before the national government has a policy?
Thank you. Thank you, Timothy. I wholly agree with the direction that both Nick and Tume want us to go. Because if we look at the creative industry, the creative economy, it is the next frontier that we are going to create youth employment. And basically that means soon it will be the driving force in our economy. If you look at most economies, including Nigeria and India, that is now a sector that has created a huge number of employment opportunities. It is also contributing to the GDP of those countries, and it's huge. In Nigeria, I think it's the third. And that means in Kenya, we can do the same. So the idea would be to have a vibrant policy that is able to move in tandem with the creative economy, because I think creativity just ran a little ahead of policy. So it is important that we have an engagement at county level, and they should be in collaboration with the national government, so that we are able to get a policy that is uniform, so that we do not end up with different policies in different regions. Because if we have policies that are sort of disengaged from one another, then it will not allow people to enjoy that platform that we are trying to create. We'd like a situation where, after Nick has looked at what he wants, and Tume also, and the other counties like Mombasa that she has mentioned, and of course I know a lot of counties that are working on this. We have Isiolo, we have Vihiga, we have Bungoma and Kisumu, who have very vibrant creative and tourism industries, and they are keen to move this forward. So we would want to look at a scenario where we merge all these thoughts, and then together, probably with the KFC, we are able to sit and then guide the conversation going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. John, as the servant, your reaction and your comments.
Well, from 1995, I think the conversation has always been about how do we create an industry. In Kenya, we are still a kiosk. We cannot even call ourselves a sector, because the only time that we get to communicate with the government most of the times is when we are in forums of this nature. And we need to nurture a better way of creating an ecosystem whereby we can be able to communicate. Yesterday was interesting, but we never got to get far, simply because at the end of the day, filmmakers are agents who don't like to be told, because they are creatives. They like to be listened to, and unfortunately it has not happened for a very long time. We have had like 5 drafts of the film policy. So hopefully this year we're gonna see the policy. I have a second-born daughter who I always call look at, and I see the struggle I've gone through when we were trying to formulate the policy. I almost call her policy as a nickname because she reminds me the struggle that we've gone through trying to see the draft come from one minister to another. I started the industry, I came into the industry when the minister was Raphael Tuju. It's a long time coming, and the same discussions in boardrooms. You professionals, we are not even professionals, because if you go to KRA, we are known as others. We are not professionals at all. We are not like doctors, we are not like engineers. We don't have a bill which can be able to be taken to Parliament. Hopefully through the policy we can have a bill. So the archaic law which was created in 1954 is what regulates the film industry. And you find at the end of the day we are still having a problem in terms of how do you regulate creativity at inception. It is crazy. We follow the law, but behind the scenes we are suffering as an industry. That's why I'm a servant, because I sometimes talk on behalf of my colleagues. Other times I struggle and strangle myself trying to produce content. There is still confusion in terms of who is supposed to regulate, who is supposed to help us to get money. So let us not beat about the bush. What these filmmakers want is money. If you put money here and they are tomorrow making films, then you can forget the policy. So just show them the money, they go make films, and then the rest will be history. Thank you.
Thank you, Karanja. You've said at KRA, my filmmakers are known as others. We need to move from others to professionals. And for us to move to that particular section, we have to come out as professionals. Karanja has said he values policy, but at the same time he doesn't value it, because if money is on the table, we forget the policy. The question is, why should we forget the policy if money is on the table?
I think one of the things that is very clear is that most of the filmmakers work from hand to mouth. One of the things that for my first production, I usually had to beg within the family for them to believe in terms of what filmmaking and television production is all about. I remember up to date, my mother has really not understood what I do, because those years when I wanted actually to, I qualified for university, but I told her I wanted actually to go and do something which was similar to newspaper, because she could not understand what filmmaking was all about. And I usually give the example of the journalist in the village then. He usually used to wear one coat throughout the week, and he used to work for a farm which was known as Kenya Sometimes. So when I told my father that is what I wanted for a living, the greatest example which came about was that guy. And you can believe the quarrel which was there. But thank to God, I still managed to go to KMC and become a professional filmmaker. The reason as to why we need money is because money makes things happen. And right now, the producers in the house, a lot of them have a lot of content in hard drives, and they are struggling to sell the content to broadcasters and to put it online or to other platforms. But for that, even the person who is loading the hard drive so that it can be actually connected to the internet still needs money, because policy may be beautiful colored, and even bees may confuse it for corona and come for pollination. But at the end of the day, what is very important is it going to create an ecosystem whereby we're going to get money? If we don't get money, we are not interested in it. The good thing with the draft is that it looks at all those challenges in terms of how do we raise money. But at the same time, even for a market like this, if I digress a little bit, we needed to have bankers in the house so that they understand what filmmaking is all about, so that they don't keep on asking us for what we call collateral in terms of title deeds. Some of us don't have cars; we have wheelbarrows. So how do we use a wheelbarrow as collateral? So those are issues that we need to address.
Pascal, delve in Karanja's discussion.
Thank you, Karanja. I hear you. As an individual, I enjoy the art. I enjoy plays, movies, and all that, music. So I'm very sold to the idea that we need a very creative and vibrant society that is able to be in tandem with the growth of the creatives. Because, like you say, the law is pretty archaic, to use your words, and the creatives are very vibrant. They are way ahead of most regulations. They are way ahead of most laws. If you look at social media, we are right there. And most economies, most countries are trying to catch up with laws and policies that would guide how it would work. So we know that we need to do something. However, it would be good to have that vibrancy which gives you money, but with a framework that there is a policy to guide it. Because if the money comes and you do not have a framework or a policy to guide the way you operate, then there'll be suffering. Because there will be certain individuals who will be doing things out of hand. Then others will be trying to do it in an ethical manner. Then people are going to start losing. So the policy there really is not to stop the money, but the policy is to create a platform where everybody is going to operate with, for lack of a better word, with decorum, so that if there's one pot, then there is an agreed ratio of sharing that pot. If there is an opening somewhere, then we have a way that everybody who is in the creative economy is able to get a share in that opening. Because if there are no rules, then we'll end up with a situation where probably just one person who has some form of influence being able to eat everything in the pot. So we want the policy just to guide. It is a guide, and it will not be cast in stone. It's a guide that will give us a roadmap, both us, the national government, and the county government, to be able to work with the creatives. Because where there's a framework, then it's very easy to engage. It's very easy to collaborate. Because, for example, if somebody wanted an MOU with the creative industry, then you'll just refer to the policies to guide it, so that that money you're talking about can then be released. Without policy, the county government and the national government will have their hands tied. They would not be able to know how to give you this money, even if it was there. So policies, we would look at this as a guide. Thank you.
Thank you, Pascal. I want to move you to the next level of discussion, and I'll go beyond the borders. Africa Union, that is AU, has ratified the formation of AACC, that is the Film Commission for Africa. Most African countries, and if I'm not wrong, it's only Kenya that has a film commission. Rwanda is currently working on the same. Uganda is still doing the studies. Tanzania has a film board, but Africa Union has already ratified a number of proposals which should be operationalized. I would like members to really come up and comment whether we are starting from the top and whether that is the best way to do it. Because if Kenya doesn't have a policy, but Africa has a policy, are we turning the house upside down? And is that something good? Two, counties are already working on their own policies at the county level. When we go back to the constitution, a section of the film industry is devolved. That is management of cinema halls and infrastructure at the counties. While the general operations of the film industry, like marketing and promotion, as well as regulation still remains at the national government. I would like to hear your comments, each one of you, starting from the servant.
Well, I was privileged actually to be in the meetings where the WACC was being discussed, courtesy of EPASI. It is a good thing and also a very bad thing for us as a country, because still at the grassroots, very few people who know what Kenya Film Commission is about. I think it has not devolved from Nairobi. A lot of people still regard it as Nairobi Film Commission. And it is important that you go still to the grassroots so that you can be able to tell more people about Kenya Film Commission. And I think policy which has been there for the longest, it's high time that we did pass the policy so that as we are sitting with the AU or their representatives in terms of policy, at least in Kenya we can be able to say we have a policy. So for 3 times I've heard that it has become a cabinet memo. I hope this time it will just not be another story. It is already at cabinet. During Wario's time, I heard it was at cabinet. This time we still hear it is at cabinet. So I hope finally we're gonna see it out of cabinet and into operation so that we can be able to move to the next level. To finish, I think the issue of filmmakers, I still go back to money, and I say that a lot of money is produced from treasury in the name of film. But if you ask filmmakers here, how many of them have tasted a coin which is meant for them in terms of filmmaking? Maybe very few who win in terms of the pitches which are being done here. But there is nobody else who can come and say the government has been able to provide 1 million shillings which have been able to use in a film. So there is no cycle in terms of importance of professionalizing the whole industry of film. And that is why, in spite of a good policy, if money is not put where it is meant to be put, we will still remain a kiosk.
Karanja is talking about allocations to the sector or to the industry. I think that's very key, Madam Tume.
Yeah.
And maybe before you go, I just want to acknowledge the presence of Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Laikipia, Bwana Mwaniki. Karibu.
Thank you. I still would want to agree with the servant. The servant who owns a wheelbarrow. It's true, we need money, but money without policy will not help us. I have a disability policy and a fund, and I requested for the funds, and I was told the policy does not sufficiently support disbursement of these funds. So I had to review. Get it right, and this is the time I'm getting money released from Treasury to help me with disability mainstreaming. Yes, money is important, but policy comes first. Now, with the issue of the African Union having the policy ahead of countries, is for me, it's embarrassing. It's even more embarrassing that the national government does not have its own policy. I'll welcome you to come and benchmark with the counties. National government can come and benchmark with counties. Because this is where the real artists are. And my other fear is we will focus more on, the police will guide us also because it will not give leverage or advantage to the filmmakers, because we have a lot of many artists. We have the visual artists, we have the performing artists, we have the designers. So the policy will ensure equitable and fair share of funds once it's created. Thank you.
Pascal.
Thank you. Bwana Servant, Mr. Karanja. we still agree with you. We are together in this. One or two things that I can mention is, one, the policy, like I said earlier, and like Tume has just reinforced, is important, because she's just given you the example of how then disbursements can come, because the National Treasury would then be comfortable that if they are disbursing funds, there is a framework on which those funds will be utilized. So it's good not to forget about the policy. Then two, the issue that AU is already ahead of the rest of us is something that we should be a wake-up call. So what we need to do is, the way the counties are moving, we need to ensure that they are all moving as quick as possible, and try to bring up their policies to be able to guide the national conversation, so that the regulations that we already have, because we have national regulations, we have regulations that are guiding the film sector. That's why we have the laws that tell us if you want to be an agent, a film agent, this is what you need to do. So it means we already have a framework. So it is not per se blank. The space is not blank. And if you look at KFC, they have a framework that guides the way they operate, because there's a statute that creates them. So these laws are there. So it's not a blank space. So when the counties come in, they only need to plug into the already existing regulations. Then together we'll be able to know how to marry this to what AU is driving us towards. And then it becomes easy, because we already have the framework. So the platform is there, the framework is there. So do not take it as an embarrassment. Take it as a wake-up call. It's telling us that we need to move quick, because everybody thought that the creatives are people that if they go to the bank, they cannot be given loans because they do not have collateral. Now, if we create those policies, then we are able to change that conversation, so that they know that creativity in itself is a collateral. It only means that you as a person and your ability and your capacity to draw, to make people laugh, to sing is the collateral. So you should be bankable. You should be bankable, just the way the architect and the accountant and the doctor is bankable, and all those are actually creativity. They belong to creativity. The architect will create a house, the accountant will work with the figures, the lawyer will have a riddle with words, but they're all creativity. So we just need to ensure there's policy to tell the banks that you have collateral in yourself. And that will then talk to both the counties and the national government, so that we merge our thoughts, we end up with a joint front, which will now marry to AU. So we'll not be looking at AU as an embarrassment, but as a wake-up call. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think the message that is coming out from the speakers is that we have to move from others to formal business. We cannot continue being others. So I'll allow Nick to give his views, then I'll do a bit of reorganization of my panel before we move forward. Thank you.
For me, what I think matters policy, the AU having a policy before we have a national policy is good, because it's so embarrassing, and the leaders should be so embarrassed to do something about policy. So I'm hoping that this will spur them to action to make sure that we do have a policy and a policy in place. Secondly, I think I want to agree and disagree a little bit with the servant, and this is again on policy being a framework upon which the creative arts can thrive, more so the film industry. Because as we exist at the moment, we have the archaic law from 1954, which I still have not been able to answer whether it's stronger than the Constitution, or the Constitution is below Cap 222. I'm not very sure, since I'm not a lawyer. But what I can say is that we need a policy that will, first and foremost, remove the hostility that is directed towards filmmakers and artists by the government and also by the people of Kenya. Recently, a cameraman I work with was crossing Nairobi carrying a camera. He was stopped about 3 or 4 times, being asked, do you have a license? for a camera? Do we really need a license for a camera? Do you need a permit for a camera? And that hostility has to end. And again, also, when we go to the people, because of the hostility that comes from the government, they look at us with suspicion. If you remove, you take out your camera in your place like in Kajiado, anyone passing around will tell you, well, ukipiga picha yangu lazima unilipe. That hostility has to go, and I believe the policy can help us get rid of that hostility. Secondly, about funding. Funding, I think, is crucial, and it's fundamental that money is spent on this industry. Otherwise, if the government does not show its commitment to the industry by disbursing funds to the development of the industry, then it will always be rhetorical. We'll just be saying we want to grow this industry, we want to move this industry, but unless we put money where our mouth is, we will remain in the same place. Thank you.
Thank you, Maniki. So allow us 2 minutes to reorganize our panel, then we proceed. Just relax. Okay, now I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Laikipia, to join us, as well as Rene. I'm not sure whether we've met the 2/3 gender rule. We have. Okay. I welcome Rene and Your Excellency to join us in the discussions about policy. And before we go to the second session, I think there are few takeaways that are very critical. The industry wants money, but money has to be directed where there is a structure. Without a structure, it will be very hard to disburse money. On stage, we have René Denis, who is the audiovisual attaché at the ministry, at the French embassy, handling about 5 countries in the region. And he will be sharing with us matters policy based on best practice in other countries that he has served. Then we have the Deputy Governor of Laikipia, His Excellency Maniki, who will also give us his views and what he thinks is necessary going forward. Just to jog our brains, today we have Kenya Film Commission, we have Kenya Film Classification Board, and we have the industry at large. There is the national government, there is the county government. Kenya Film Commission and Kenya Film Classification Board, they all have boards. Is it the right time, in view of the changing times, that we had a representative of counties in the boards of these 2 institutions? I'll start off with Your Excellency, Maniki. You will tell us about Laikipia in your own words.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Well, before I go into that, I walked in when there was a discussion on AU, and it looked like we are unhappy that AU is ahead of us. What may surprise you is that the people who drafted the policy for AU are actually Kenyans. You'll be surprised. We know we are good at going to other jurisdictions, other markets, other countries. We develop very nice programs, then we come back and we lament about them. Just the other day we had Kenyans go all the way to Rwanda to benchmark on milk production. And actually the Rwandese said, we actually benchmarked from Kiambu. So you can imagine. I'm saying that because the AU has the African Audiovisual and Cinema Commission, which is now hosted in Laikipia. Yeah, and the drafters, actually, the governor of Laikipia was part of the panel that drafted the policy. And you see, because of lack of decision, he had to take it up and say, why I'm willing to host you in the county. So I'm waiting to see the industry players come over to Laikipia to benefit. And you see, the commission has an ambitious plan to raise about $400 million into the industry, and thereby creating jobs to the tune of 20 million jobs from the current tune of about 5-6. So the industry plans are very good. They are very elaborate. They exist. I think it's only for us to walk the talk, because that's where the rubber will meet the road. Now you talked about various boards and various agencies. I mean, that is what we are good at. Even now, I'm sure, if I'm not wrong, we should be able to create another commission from this discussion to look at how those two commissions how those two can be merged. Then another 2 years down the line. So by the time we are aging and we are working with walk sticks, there will be nothing. Just commissions, agencies after agencies. We tried to merge the financial sector, which is about 6 years now down the line. We haven't been able to actualize. The difference between our country and some of the other competitors that we face is that we take so long to make decisions. I don't know why. I don't know whether it's a Kenyan thing. I don't know whether because it's not an African thing. In other countries, you have a piece of legislation. In about 6 months, it is done and dusted. Here in this country, talk about 5 years, 10 years, because as long as it's not meeting the political need at that point in time, it is set aside. So I look forward to the day in this country that business will drive politics, not politics driving business. And that is where the Asian tiger will always be ahead of us. Now, if we want to sort out the issue of funding, what we have done in Laikipia, we have an innovation fund, which is basically to fund any innovation, any creativity. And we are very keen to ensure that local content and anyone who is in the industry of the film wants to get into, will be able to support them. Although it's not anything big to talk about, but that small fund can be able to kickstart and encourage majority of the people in the county who are very creative, young people, they are shying off from coming to the front. That will be able to kickstart them. We also very keen to ensure that we set up a directorate that is very specific for film and creative economy. So that then if there is focus, there is one area where we can get all the information about, because indeed, Laikipia presents a very good locality and site. Like we said the other day we were in this forum, one of the things that I have noticed that is always a deterrent is of course the cost. Now most counties will not really want to make money out of charging revenues or fees for filmmaking. But you realize when you come to the county, you'll most likely go and select on a site that is a private entity. Now, how much can government control price on the private land or private facility? But I think as a county, it's a discourse that we can continue with, so that these particular sites that are predetermined, then the owners can be invited on the table. And there are many ways that the government can concession them in various taxes, rates, so that at the end of the day, if you are going to host a filmmaking event, then you get this sort of discounts that are not direct, so that then you can also reduce the price for the filmmakers. And that will be able to move us forward. I think the other thing that is very important is for us to think as a country, how can we ensure that we have a one-stop clearance mechanism, so that I don't have to pay taxes at the port if I'm importing my equipment. Then I have to come to all the various, you call them toll stations, or they way bridge. Then you get to the counter, you have to pay another tax. So is it possible that once I get cleared from the port, then all the way to Laikipia, all the way to Machakos, all the way to Nakuru, then I'm able to run my thing, and therefore that keeps my costs down. In any business, the ability to predict cost is usually very important. Just the other day, I asked one of the media house, why is it so important that you value foreign content? And they said it is cheaper. it is cheaper to air foreign content than local content. And I sympathize with our economy. You look at even other areas, like even in the sugar industry. We ask, why are people bringing sugar from Brazil? It is cheaper per cost of production. So I think we need to really work ourselves as a country and make things cheaper for our young people, for our creative economy to prosper. Yeah.
Thank you, Governor. I think you've said it all. One-stop shop is key for this sector, but that can only happen if all systems are actually communicating. Rene, I would like you to tell us or give us the best practice from Europe and what you feel or think needs to be done in our situation. We happen to be taking too much time in decision making.
Thank you, Timothy. Timothy, you've been using a word which is very important. You said we need a structure. Yes. If you want the television and cinematographic sectors to one day become an industry, because as said Karanja, it's not yet an industry. For that, you need really the national government to commit itself through some laws, decrees, and important decisions. Congratulations to the countries for trying to help developing the production of contents. But there is something that I didn't hear from you so far. If you produce a content, it's not what is the aim of producing a content. You want to see it on TV or in a movie theater. If this is to put it on a shelf, there is no interest in producing content. So who are the people that are concerned by that? Broadcasting houses and theater owners. What we have done in France, the government has many years ago has put a law that oblige all TV channels, private or public, to dedicate 20% of their annual turnover to the private production sector, to avoid having them producing everything internally, but to also consider that some private production need also to work. And by giving 20% of their annual turnover, we have today more than 1,000 private production companies, which is good to provide employment to the youth. That's how you create an industry. When the youth finish their studies in university, when they study audiovisual, they are not yet considered as being a director, a producer, or a TOP, etc. They need to also learn through practice. And those private production companies are the ones that can hire production assistants, trainees, as director's assistant, etc. That's how I learned myself in the business, by starting working on a talk show, and then next time on a documentary, and I was working on freelance basis hired by those private companies. And this is how you build your skills, and one day you say, yes, I can now maybe run by myself, create my own company. So you have to improve the number of private production companies. That will be a key for creating and boosting the employment of youth. And to be able to increase the number of private companies, you need to have that kind of push from the government. Say, okay, all TV channels will give 20% of their annual turnover to private companies to produce content for them. Then you create really something that is going to move. In France, when you go to a theater, here you have only 22 movie theaters in Kenya, but it's going to improve, it's going to increase. And in France, when you go to see a movie, you pay your ticket. More than 50% of the price of the ticket go back to the CNC, our National Center of Cinematography, who then bring some grant to producers, to movie producers, to produce new films. So this is a circle. You take here, and you re-inject the money, and you create a circle. And this is the kind of important decision you have to. It's not only the countries giving money for making films, but what about those films afterward? What about those content? Who will be able to force the broadcasters or to force the owners of theaters to broadcast local content? So you have already a figure for local content, but if you don't direct some measures to the TV channels, then you will never change the situation. Yeah.
Thank you, Rene. I think now I would like to open up the session to the audience to be able to give comments, ask questions to respective panelists, and let's engage more. Because at the end of this particular session, I would like us to have some takeaways, actionable takeaways that we should be able to follow through and possibly implement. So the floor is open.
Good morning. My name is Kevin. I'm a filmmaker. I have several questions, so I'll just name them quickly. The first one is the Cap 222. We definitely need to change that because we all know that was a colonial, something that was passed by our colonial masters, and now we need to do something by ourselves. So what can KFC, KFCB, and the county governments do to push for that law to be changed? What responsibility can you guys take for that? The second question is, how much longer do we have to wait for this policy that has been at the cabinet? This goes to you, John. How much longer do we have to wait? Because you are the people who are pushing for that. So how much long do we have to wait for that? Then the other thing is, as we know, is 40% of our broadcasters are required by law to have 40% of content that is Kenyan. 60
from 40 it moved to 60 now in 2018.
But they haven't even met 40%, actually. They haven't even met.
Nobody's meeting the quota. Yeah,
exactly. So what the question here is, a majority of them, for them to meet the 40% that was even previously, they usually do in-house productions. So what can we do in terms of policy, like what the French are doing, to enforce these broadcasters to at least give a certain percent of that to independent producers? And then, the last question is on piracy. By law, it's illegal to pirate content. However, for some weird reason, people out there are allowed to pirate foreign content. And this is in terms of bootleg 50 bob DVDs. So I'm asking you, what can we do to enforce piracy even for international content? Because it's my belief, if we ban that, if we ban piracy of also international content, what we are teaching Kenyans is there is value to content. There is no way someone can go buy a whole season of Game of Thrones for 50 bob. Then you Kenyan, unakuja na content yako and you want to sell it for 2,000. That Kenyan, you've taught that Kenyan that content is not worth it's not worth your money.
And steal money from all the people who have rights.
Exactly. So
behind the film.
Can we enforce the Copyright Act to also involve foreign content?
I think we respond to those first before we proceed. John? And before John, the custodian of the draft policy is government. John was a stakeholder that was part of the validation of the film policy. So where we are, I think during the opening of Kalasha, the CS was very clear that shortly we'll cross that bridge. So I think let's just be hopeful that it won't take long, because all the necessary inputs are already on the table. Karanja.
Well, I can second that, because very reliable sources are saying that finally we are going to have the policy. And what the policy will do is that it will change the ecosystem of how we are thinking and how we are operating. It will even be able to kill Cap 22. Cap 22 will be dead in the water after the policy comes through, because policy comes with a bill which actually creates an authority. We have centralized the way we think in terms of film, so that you don't go to Kakamega to get a service you can get in Nairobi, then come back to Nairobi, move to Mombasa to get a license, then come back for regulation in Kisumu. So we have been able to look at the possibility of how that can happen. On WACC, Your Excellency, I believe I'm a friend to the governor, and he was 75% in the action of WACC, and that's why he has hosted WACC in Laikipia, because the government of the Republic of Kenya has not really grasped what WACC is all about. and what it will do to the economy. And I think it is important also for KFC to look at all those documents, because they are there, they are available from THEPASI in terms of what WACC is all about, so that we move to the next level. And for my friend Nick Jashe, I'm saying if you give these filmmakers the option between money and policy, they'll opt for money. It is you as the government to look at the issue of policy, because they have said what they want. So they cannot move the document to the cabinet. It is upon the government systems to make sure that we have a policy. And it is very annoying that 14 years later, we are still discussing a document we first validated over 8 years ago. So when we started the process, majority of the people here were actually in nursery, others were in primary, others were in secondary. And still, 24 years down the line, we are discussing the same thing and wondering where we are going wrong. So we will continue being called others as long as we don't put our house in order. And this has to begin by us being given the policy we created.
Thank you. I'll go to Pascal, and I would like you to address the question of piracy with the perspective that in Kenya, we have more video halls than cinema halls. Pascal will tell us how many video halls are in the country, and possibly whether those video halls, they show movies that are pirated, and if yes, how we can be able to really deal with that particular menace. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. I'll start with Bwana Karanja. And yes, the policy has been long in coming, that like you mentioned, it's now about to come out. And I think you have that belief because you know that both KFC and KFCB and the whole creative industry has now been moved into what we would say a more dynamic ministry. So I think you know that for that reason, it's going to be resolved very soon. So when the policy comes out, then a lot of these issues will have been taken care of. Before I go to the issue that Timothy has raised, I'll just pick up from what Rene mentioned, that is there a way that we can have broadcasters and theater owners have a certain percentage go into developing the creative industry. And yes, that is a very positive move, and it would be one of the areas that we would like to address. And the first step, Karanja, would be to have that policy, because the policy will create a structure. Now, if the structure is there, then it's very easy to tell the broadcaster that this small donation you are giving, because it will be small for them, they make loads of money, it will be small for them, this donation is going towards ensuring that our local content producers will make us meet the 60-40 ratio that we are struggling to meet. Then we now get all the Mexican soaps and the Nigerian ones that chickens turn into dust every other time, yet we have very nice productions from people like Riverwood, and when we looked at what has been happening in Machawood, we have very nice things being produced from there. So we know that it's the empowerment that is lacking, and if we have the structure in place, then that empowerment will be able to reach the creatives. And yes, we have, Timothy, we have well over 1,000 video houses, and a number of them comply, so they do not show the pirated cinemas, movies. But like in all sectors in Kenya, we have a lot of contraband. So there are a lot of people who will still do this, because I think as a country we still need to be able to move towards the direction where we say that if we do something in the expected legal manner, then we are going to support one another. But we still look inwards so that the video owner knows that if I show this bootleg of 50 bob, then I make a lot of money, which is incorrect. at the end of the day, you're killing the people that in the long run should be able to help you grow. Because if the locals grow, then him as the guy that now markets, we will call him the marketer, because he shows this to the audiences, will be able to make more money. So that's a conversation that we'll continue to have with them. And the next thing is that the issue of copyright sits with a board called KECOBO, Kenya Copyrights Board. And they have in place the way that they enforce that. We know that they work closely with the Ministry of Interior, which includes the police, to ensure that they enforce that. However, we will not be able to speak on their behalf here and say this is what they do. But the board is there, and they are charged with ensuring that people do not just pick up things and show. You need to have some framework and pay the requisite money if you're going to show somebody else's movie. So we still need to respect that. And I think many business people do not want to respect that. So that's how KECOBO came in, and they're trying to resolve that. Going back to CAP 222, Kevin, it's clearly been overtaken by what Karanja said, because when the policy comes, then that will be rationalized. However, I want to give you a short story to know that even though it's a cake, we've been trying to move away from the old laws and try to ensure that our regulations grow with the way the world is growing. Unfortunately, the creative industry, which includes the social media, clearly grows faster than everybody would have thought. Yeah. Long ago, when I was in the university, we used to get something called Boom. Then after you get Boom, the first thing you'd want to buy would be a system. Yes, so it was called a boom box. Timothy would know. Most of the young people here would know. DG would know. No, Tume, you would not know. Oh, she knows. No. Okay. Okay, so you'd walk down to Luthuli Avenue and buy what would be a boombox. It was a huge cassette with double side and all that. But you'd need to buy a license. You're buying your own radio, your own cassette, but you need to get a license from KBC to go and listen to what you've bought with your own money. So our laws have come from far. To you, that would sound very ridiculous, because now if I buy my radio, why would I want to pay some fees to KBC that I'm buying my own radio? So it means that dynamism that came into the economy was just moving a little faster than the laws. Thank God that law was removed, so all of you can now buy radios without having to pay that fee. I did pay it, but now it's gone. It used to be ridiculous. So that also reflects on where we are seeing CAP 222. We inherited a law that was promulgated so long ago. And it takes a lot of time for laws to be changed by Parliament, because it has to go through the normal process. However, now there's been review, there's been participation, we've had stakeholders speak, they've given their opinion, and we've looked at the voices of other people, we've looked for legal opinion, and members of the creative economy like Karanja have been having their input incorporated. So that will then be able to harmonize all the regions that Kevin and the rest have been seeing that are a little prohibitive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, we happen to be out of time, but I'll allow one gentleman from Nakuru to just tell us his views on the issue of policy. Then I'll ask the panelists each to take a minute to give their parting shot. Thank you. But the conversation continues on social media.
Thank you so much. My name is David Mwangi. I'm the chairman of Nakuru County Tourism Association. Policy in film is a very interesting topic, but as Savan Karanja said, it has been there for all these years. And a policy, even if it comes tomorrow, it will be as good as those people who are implementing it and the way it is being implemented. So I will still believe that there are several aspects in the policy, especially financing, censorship, regulation, but I would like to handle finance because that is what Karanja said is needed on the table. And I want to merge tourism with film, and especially with culture, and that's why we came with the Chief Officer Abduba, because in Nakuru, tourism and film, they are the same. Under tourism, we have film tourism that's vibrant in Nakuru. And when you look at finance, there are two ways. Yes, you can coerce the government, you can push in the policy to have a fund for film. For example, in hotels, we have what we call the Tourism Finance Corporation, which is a finance body that finance people who want to invest in tourism. If you want to build a hotel today, you go to the Tourism Finance Corporation, give them a proposal, this is the hotel I want to build, there's a number of rooms, these are the returns, and then they will fund you at an interest. Maybe you need something like that for film. And then that being the government part, there is what is working now, the public-private partnership. If you want to succeed, Servant, embrace the private sector. If the government is taking all these years, go to the private. How am I going to go about it? For example, there is a team that went to Naivasha, which is in Nakuru, and they wanted to shoot a film. So they entered into one of our member hotels, and they agreed with them that they're going to get a concession rate for them to shoot in Naivasha at Hell's Gate. They get very good discount, and the film was shot in Naivasha. So if we can embrace that partnership and do it commercial, for example, if you can come to a good hotel and shoot a very nice commercial for that hotel will sponsor, and that money you can do it, you can use it to do something else. Thank you so much.
So I'll give members 1 minute each as we wrap up, and Madam Abduba, yes. I'm aware you have gift hampers for our panelists. Before you leave, yes, she will be able to hand them over to you. So I'll start with Nick, and I'll finish with Your Excellency.
I think my 1 minute, the way I would, what I would like to talk about first is I think the policy is very important, but I think we can have some very quick wins before the policy is implemented. For example, in Machakos County, the governor gave a directive that anyone who shoots in Machakos County does not need to pay for any licenses. That means you can shoot on our roads, you can shoot in our streets. If you're going to use a private establishment, then we also help you to talk to this private establishment to allow you to use their facilities. That is one. Secondly, I want to appeal to my colleague here, Pascal, and to agree with Njue. Piracy has been institutionalized in Kenya. If you walk into any video shop, there are 3 licenses that you will find. One of them, like because I come, like for example in Nairobi, is Nairobi County license, business license. The second license, which really pains me, is from KFCB. The third license that really kills me is from Kekobo. These guys are supposed to protect us. But what they have done is that they have licensed and institutionalized piracy. We really need you guys.
Nick, your 1 minute is over.
Okay. Can I just say one thing? I think lastly is, I've lost my train of thought for Lenny.
I was going to lend Nick a few of my minutes so that Timothy did not have to stop him. However, he lost his train of thought, so I'll pick it up from there. I think we need to move away from the belief that laws and regulations means that people pirate. No, people pirate because they do not want to follow laws and regulations. Because I'll give you an example. If you are driving on the road and there are traffic lights, the traffic light then is the regulation. But believe me, how many people, I'll use the example of a Pro Box, sorry to anybody who drives a Pro Box, how many times have you seen them jump traffic lights? I know Kenyans like jumping traffic lights, it's incorrect. That's the regulation, is the equivalent of the license that Kekobo and KFCB offer. But then there's the Matatu and the other drivers who, for a reason that nobody knows, will still jump the lights. So then when the lights are there and the traffic police are there and they're jumping, it's not that the traffic police and the lights are encouraging them to jump, no. So Kekobo and KFCB are not encouraging piracy. I think what we should look at is that, is the fee high so that it should be reduced? And that is what the policy is addressing.
Thank you, Pascal. We go to Karanja.
Well, from 1994 to 2019, over 1 million people have joined the film industry. And they are so hungry simply because there is a blame game which keeps on going on between institutions. So it is you who is supposed to regulate, it is you who is giving licenses in terms of pirates. So at the end of the day, it is a case of musical chairs as far as we are concerned. What we need to do is to see the institutions put their houses in order and not to blame each other and not to tell us what is not happening, because at the end of the day, we are the people who are suffering. In terms of piracy, one of the things that can happen very quickly is for KFC, KFCB, before we get the authority, to join hands with KRA and make sure that when DVDs are coming from the port, they are actually given a tax of 1,000%. So when they are able to show what the DVDs are meant for, then their tax can be returned. That's the only way we can have the video stores, which are about 400,000 in Kenya, stopping pirating.
Thank you, Karanja. We move
proposal
to
is there.
Rene?
That proposal is there.
Yeah, thank you. No, I will insist again, Timothy, on the involvement of national government. For me, it's really a key. In France, the government has always been next to the professionals to really listen to their concern and try to put things in place. I give you the example of the 20% that is the obligation for the TV channels to contribute to a private production company. Another example, look what happened in UK. There was a time that they had a problem with financing the movie industry. They put a tax on the betting industry. They put a tax on the national lottery. Here you have a huge betting industry. Don't you think that 4 or 5% of those guys will change them for making money? No, it will be like in the law for them, but it will bring a fund that could help producing better films with better budgets. So there are many ideas here. In France, we always adapt. The platform are developing, the mobile operators are developing their business. Always the government look at who has the money and put tax on those main guys. That's what you should do.
On the point that Rene has just raised, I would like to inform the audience that the Kenya government has actually established a fund that will go towards supporting this sector and other sectors, monies emanating from the betting section. We move to Madam Abduba.
Thank you. You'll give me 2 minutes because I'm giving you gift hampers. Yeah, I agree with the servant. We are called others. In my department, whenever I meet with the county secretary, he'll always tell me, let all the other departments present except others. I ask him which are others. He says gender, service, and culture. We have been able to develop a film called Ole Naibon with my others budget. And it premiered 2 weeks ago. And I had the honor of inviting Oliver Litondo, our Hollywood superstar, who is not known in Kenya, but we all know Angelina Jolie, and we know Brad Pitt. We want to urge KFCB to please bring cinema mashinani to Nakuru. I agree with Mwangi about PPP. PPP was what has helped us do our film. For the bill, we will fast track. The next time I'll be here, I'm the one going to announce that our policy is there. Our culture policy. We have a very tenacious chair in the assembly, so I'm sure I'm going to announce that. We hope to train. We plan to have a master class for filmmakers, around 25 filmmakers for animation, and hopefully produce 12 other films with support from partners. So that is to enable young people get opportunities to learn and to also make money. And finally, I'd like us to observe a moment of silence for one of our artists who passed on in the Kikopey road accident, a young, brilliant, upcoming artist called Christophil. She passed on a week ago. We are fundraising. Should you want to donate, you can pass by our booth at Nakuru. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
and next
you.
time we come here, we will not be saying we should. We will have done what we've agreed today. Thank you.
Governor.
Thank you very much. I like what she is saying, that we need to move from policy. I mean, we can't meet here to discuss policy that Karanja is talking about 14, 20 years. Even we might annoy the drafters of the policy. I think on the issue of piracy, I just have 2 points. You know, we have a very willing, capable and ready CS Matiang'i to enforce laws. Just deliver the issue of piracy to his desk. And I can assure you in 2 weeks, there will be no more illegal videos. Yeah, I mean,
just a quick one,
no.
Banadiji.
You take that.
We are already working with him. I just wanted to clarify that if you looked a few weeks ago, we were in Mombasa County with all the county commissioners and the policemen, and we are working on that. Because of that executive order, it has given us that leeway to be able to work with the interior very closely. So we started last week in Mombasa County, and we've gone to Western, and we are working with CS Matiang'i. Thank you.
But you know also, for them to enforce, they must understand. So you need to explain to them exactly how we are killing jobs. Anyway, I'm meeting him next week. Yes. Among my other issues, believe me, I'll raise this issue.
He'll tell you that
now,
we had a seminar for them.
On financing, I think let's not always talk to national government. We devolved governments. County governments have serious budgets. Take the conversations to the governors and the MCAs. Empower them, capacity build the MCAs so that they can actually be able to understand they need part of their budget, 1%, sio mingi, 1% only to film industry. And we shall see a progress. We shall make progress as a country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I take this opportunity to thank my panelists. You've done a great job. Asante sana. And the audience, thank you very much. We await for the gift hampers from Nakuru. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
That's great. The county commissioner. Okay. We are working with them so closely. Some of us have done well. Okay, I'm very new in case.
And then we have many guys.
A year old now, so okay. We ended up. I didn't get you. I gave you. Yes, yeah.
Why not using your TV channels to fight against terrorism? You have KBC, who is the public broadcaster. Put some adverts. Have them running some adverts.
Profit. We are big chance from the state, so we finish.
You got the flowers.
She has given the gift hamper, what is really important. Madam, you just say what is in there. It's important.
So, pink.
Take the microphone. Madam, then you say, what is inside?
Okay. Pink. Pink is the color of Nakuru flamingos. Then we have roses. Nakuru is the home of roses. And in there we have Menengai. Menengai is a big factory in Nakuru County. Thank you. This is to bribe Pascal to bring Cinema Mashinani to Nakuru and bring Ezekiel Mutua to Nakuru. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, that is for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is for the best CEO,
Yes.
Mr. Timo Wase. We love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Oh, yeah, there's cameraman. You see?
Young cameraman are coming. We value our work and we want to promote them.
The next session is starting in another 3 minutes. Please be prepared. Thank you for listening.
Space.